Good evening. Welcome to the April 28th Elmhurst Board of Education meeting. The board has been in session since 5 o'clock this evening. In closed session, discussing employment of employee. We've actually been interviewing superintendent candidates. We have 6 board members at present. Mr. Bloom is absent. He is ill this evening. So please all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't have any blue cards up here that we ask people to fill out if they have public comments. But if there's anybody that's here to address the board, please, you're welcome to step up. So if you can go to the microphone, push the button so the red light comes on, right up here. We allow everybody 3 minutes to speak. And if you could just tell us your name and your address, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim and members of the board. Appreciate you taking a few minutes. Hopefully I won't take 3 minutes, but I read the emails that you guys send out, and they're very accurate and very informative, and I really appreciate the work that you all do here. I was really excited when I saw the schedule, and as most good husbands, I pretty much let my wife handle the schedule. But I was really excited because Labor Day was starting September 7th this year. So I kind of assumed concurrently that our school year would follow. I know in Chicago they're starting school September 8th, again after Labor Day. And I don't want to say how old I am, but in my day, Labor Day was pretty much the standard. When I saw the email about tonight's meeting, and it says partial calendar for the 2015 and 16 set to be approved Tuesday, and when I read that school for high school was going to potentially start on a Friday for the high school students, and that's a Friday the 14th, and then for elementary and middle school for Wednesday the 19th, and you were going to vote on that tonight, I just thought I'd come and at least express one Elmhurst person's opinion. And I apologize, Jeff Sokolsky, 156 North Clinton Avenue is my address here in Elmhurst. The main issue is we've just went through 2 of the worst winters we've had in a while. And we know it doesn't even get warm until around July 4th or so. So if there's any chance the board would consider potentially at least starting, maybe switch that around, maybe start high school on the 19th and maybe the elementary school on the 24th. I mean, I want to open up to ideas or at least a discussion rather than just saying we're going to start mid-August. It just seems that when I went to school that we would start at Labor Day and then it would, you know, the summer was pretty much over. We know Memorial Day starts summer, Labor Day ends it. So I'd just like you to at least consider maybe you can affect the lives of Elmhurst families here and just have them spend a little more time with their family before school starts, especially with now Labor Day being kicked back a week later this year. So that's pretty much it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else? Go ahead.
The mic is on.
Tom? Okay. Okay, so my name is Todd Davis. I live at 164 Arlington, and I was here last year about this same. I'm here to mention about the school start dates. Last year I had more prepared remarks. I kind of really only learned about this afternoon, about the actual dates that were being considered. So yeah, I sort of thought, well, last year things were early, but it's Labor Day's on the 1st of the month. So this year it's on the 7th, so they'll back off a week. So I didn't even worry about this, you know? And so I thought, well, great, they'll start on the 24th, 2 weeks before Labor Day, done. You know, they want their 2 weeks. They moved it up 2 weeks so they could get the high school kids through their finals. I get it. And then just today, I guess he sends me this email. I'm not on the 205 thing. My kids go to Catholic school. So I get this thing, and they're starting on, like ruining an extra weekend. They start on a Friday, and then the grade school kids start the following Wednesday, which I know you guys de-linked that. It's useful. But it's still about a week forward from what I was thinking about. So anyway, so I called, and they said, well, it's the same date. I'm like, yeah, but it's a week earlier relative to Labor Day. So I guess Labor Day doesn't even enter anybody's mind, but to me, Labor Day is the end of summer, I guess. So anyway, so then I look at the poll. The guys did a poll last year. I got to tell you, I mean, when you ask, I guess, if you want to move the date forward or back or something, there's like 40 people, 40% say move it back, 40% say move it forward or whatever. So it doesn't seem like there's a clear-cut consensus in the population according to the survey that I saw, from what I saw. So I guess, you know, thinking it over, it turns out we both actually went to Northwestern. Wittenberg does this. Some of the other universities do this. They have a semester that goes from September to Christmas, and then another one that goes from January to spring break, another one that goes from spring break to summer. I mean, maybe that's the compromise long term. But I don't know if the institution can even like think about that. So it's not that I'm resisting change. It's just I'm thinking, I think there's something better than like cutting up summer like this. I mean, I sent an email a few weeks ago to a board member just asking about this, and they said, well, it'll be on the 28th. But I didn't know it was going to be like finalized today. I thought it was just going to be discussed. So at any rate, I would just recommend consider these things. It just seems, yeah, it's so cold for so many months. And then to like put these kids in boxes in the middle of August, it's like, really? So that's just my thought. Okay, guys, good luck. Thanks for all your work.
While it's our policy not to comment on public comment, we will ask Superintendent Pernod when we get to that point in the agenda to discuss the calendar and rationale and what the calendar committee's thought process was there. So, anyone else? Hearing none, then let's move on to our formality of the reorganization of the Board of the Board of Education. We are subject to Illinois law. We just had an election. Our incumbents were all reelected. So it's my first duty to acknowledge the receipt of the certified election results. Congratulations to our 4 candidates who have just been reelected. Even though Mr. Bloom is not here, congratulations to him as well. We're going to have a special swearing-in ceremony for him, I guess. So that, all right, how did I manage to lose? There it is. Thank you. All right. So, so the newly elected members of the Board of Education are Ms. Emily Bastido. Oh, no. How did this happen? We have the wrong names on my script. So how about I just go what I know? Ms. Shannon Ebner, Ms. Karen Stufen, Mr. John McDonough, and Mr. Chris Bloom. So first thing I'd like you to do, oh, I love this. Step out here. Now, I see you're all bringing the script. Instead of repeat after me, you all just want to read it together? Yeah, let's do it. Okay. All right. So the board member is required by law to take the board member oath of office. I'll turn it over to you. Go ahead.
I, Karen Stufen, do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Elmhurst Community Unit School District 205 in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois to the best of my ability. I further affirm that I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets. I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board, while respecting the privacy of students and employees. I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual, and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting. And I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels. Are we really? Okay. I know.
We'll torture him.
Can he really vote before or do anything?
I don't know. Okay, now, next on our agenda, I adjourn this meeting, sendai, and next we need to elect a president pro tem. Are there any nominations?
I nominate John McDonough for President Pro Tem.
And a second?
I'll second. I enjoy this part so much.
Are there any other nominations for president pro tem? Hearing none, we'll turn it over to Mr. McDonough.
No, I'm good. I would like to know if we have a nomination for someone to serve as Secretary Pro Tempore.
I nominate Margaret Harrell.
Nomination for Margaret Harrell. Is there a second?
I second.
Are there any further nominations? Seeing none, we declare Margaret Harrell the Secretary Pro Tempore. I'll call to order. Call the meeting to order, and a roll call is taken.
Mrs. Bastido,
Yeah.
Mrs. Stufen,
Here.
Mr. Bloom is absent. Mrs. Ebner,
Here.
Mr. Collins,
Here.
Dr. Harrell,
Here.
Mr. McDonough.
Here. I would like to hear nominations for the office of President of the Board of Education.
I'll nominate Jim Collins.
Nomination for Jim Collins. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Nomination for Jim Collins by Shannon Ebner, seconded by Emily Bastido. Are there further nominations for the office of President of the Board of Education? All in favor of Jim Collins? Okay. Okay. Hearing no further nominations, I declare Jim Collins President of the Board of Education.
All right, now we need nominations for a vice president, and I would like to nominate Shannon Ebner. Do I hear a second?
I second that nomination.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, Shannon Ebner is elected Vice President of the Board of Education. Next is the election of a Secretary of the Board of Education. Do I hear any nominations?
I nominate Karen Stufen for Secretary of the Board of Education.
I second.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, Karen Stufen, elected Secretary of the Board of Education. We also have on our agenda a proposed board meeting schedule. Are there any objections to the proposed board meeting schedule? Hearing none, that will stand as submitted. And then every year, we recommend that the new board, even though the board hasn't changed much, reaffirm all the existing policies and contracts that are in effect and that they remain in effect. And that requires a roll call vote.
Should we make a motion?
Yes, we should. Thank you, John.
I make a motion that the Board of Education affirm all existing policies and contracts to remain in effect.
I second.
Moved by John, seconded by Margaret. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mrs. Walsh?
Mr. McDonough?
Yes.
Dr. Harrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Ebner?
Yes.
Mr. Bloom is absent. Mrs. Stupen?
Yes.
Mrs. Bastido?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes. All right. Now, get back to. All right. Okay. One thing I wanted to add. I'm getting a little long in the tooth in this chair, and Mrs. Ebner is, I think, ready to take over. Although we talked about it, and we think for stability's sake, as we hire a new superintendent, we decided to keep the officers the same. However, I just want to let everybody know, in a few months, about half a year, less plus, I intend to step down, and Shannon and I will change jobs. So we just want to make sure that our plan is transparent to everyone. But we want to keep the stability for now because we want to attract the highest quality and best superintendent candidate that we can. And we think stability is important to do that and get our new superintendent off on the right foot. So, next on our agenda is the superintendent's communication. Mr. Purnell.
Yes, I have 3 items to share with the board this evening. First of all, we had 3 FOIA requests that were received since our last board meeting. One regarding a specific period of purchase orders, which we denied. One regarding specific communication and documentation, which we granted. And one regarding specific financial records. That particular request was also granted. My second item is to review with the board the 2015-16 EC8 student fees. We are not going to be discussing York fees at this meeting. We will bring that back at the next board meeting. But we are going to request that the board look and approve our student fees for, again, EC8. With that, I'll turn that over to Chris Welton, and Chris will walk you through our recommendation.
We have the student fees pre-K through 8. These are the same fees that you saw on March 24th, a month ago. No changes have been made. We are increasing the pre-K fee from $70 to $71. The kindergarten fee goes from $120 to $121. The grades 1 through 5 stays the same at $182. Grades 6 through 8 increases from $166 to $190. The increase in grades 6 through 8 is due to the student consumable workbook in the literacy area, and that has to do with us moving to a digital version in the next couple of years. So that's why that cost has increased. So that's really these, as you know, these are our costs that are amortized to the students. So you can see all of the exact costs of all of our textbooks that are amortized over a 6-year life back to the students.
Any questions or discussion? Seems pretty straightforward.
Next item, I have asked Chris to give an update to the board on levy, EAV, and tax extension and rates that are coming up. So with that, turn it over to Chris again.
So we approved the levy back in December, and at that time, we didn't know what the EAV would be, and we didn't know what our new construction EAV was. So we did an estimate at that time. At that time, we were estimating EAV to decrease by 2%, and we estimated $48 million in new construction EAV for the purpose of the tax levy. And then we also have, so that's the column called tax levy, the estimated extension. We were estimating what the extension and the rates would be. And we did those estimates based on the 2% decrease in EAV and a $28 million in new construction EAV. So we recently got our information back from DuPage County, and EAV did not go down by as much as we thought, only a 0.03% increase. And that impacts the tax rates. So you'll see our estimated rates were higher than what our actual rates are now. That's because EAV did not go down as much. The EAV actually is very flat compared to last year. And then the new construction number came in at $33,043,740 compared to that $28 million estimate. So that resulted in the increase of the tax extension in the operating funds at 3.26% and an overall increase of 3.83%. But as we've talked about before, that 3.26 is made up of about 1.76 in new construction. Without new construction, it would just be a CPI increase of 1.5. So that's, but most taxpayers would see the 1.5 plus because of the bonded interest. Most taxpayers without new construction would see about a 2.24% increase.
Any questions? Also seems straightforward. Karen, did you have something? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, anything else? No. Next on our agenda is the approval of board meeting minutes from March 24th, 2015, April 8th, 2015, and April 14th, 2015. Are there any proposed amendments or changes to those minutes? No. Hearing none, then those minutes will stand as submitted. Next on our agenda is board committee reports. The first is the Teaching and Learning Committee. Shannon.
Most of the meeting was dedicated to a world language update, and there were Connie and two other teachers that presented an update on the program since 2009, and they showed a model for professional learning communities within the world language program and talked about how teaching languages have changed over the years, and they're focusing on different three modes of communication: interpersonal, interpretive, and presentational. So it was interesting to see the contrast from world language education two decades ago till today. Michelle, do you want to add anything else if I'm missing something for world language? Okay.
No, I think you did a good job, but it is really important to think about those three modes of communication. And the way it will look very different from just conjugating verbs, as I did when I was growing up and took Spanish. I don't know about you, and I think they said this, Connie's here. You don't go walking down the street, oh, as, amos, as, an, and you really have to get into the language and hear it, and that's how we learned our first language, and that's how we would want students to learn our second language.
We also talked about the seal of biliteracy, which is a goal. We want to start with a seal from York High School, and then hopefully in the next year get the seal from the state of Illinois, from the state, right? Seal by literacy. So that's exciting. Curriculum development process. This is K through 12 curriculum development, which will help us take advantage of our unit district status of a seamless curriculum. And Michelle, do you mind saying a few words about it? It's your project.
Sure. Well, we know from research the best thing for schools is a guaranteed and viable curriculum. And as stated, we have the unique opportunity of being a unit district, so we can really see where our students go from early childhood through 12th grade. And so this curriculum development process will get teachers in this room from kindergarten through 12th grade. We'll be focusing on English language arts first, and they will look at the standards, unpack the standards. What a guaranteed curriculum means is that every student is guaranteed they will have access to that curriculum. So we know that every kindergartner, what the curriculum will be, first grade, second grade, and so on. Viable means that it can live within that time frame. So our teachers have to make sure that the curriculum we put together is a curriculum that we can teach. I don't know about you guys, but again, in math, you know, chapters 15 and 16, when I was growing up, never got taught, and that was probability and statistics, because they ran out of time. We cannot have our teachers running out of time, so we have to make sure that the curriculum is viable within the school year that we have. This process will allow us to also make sure that there are no gaps in students' learning from kindergarten or early childhood through 12th grade, because as we know, learning is a progression and it has to build upon each other. And then finally, this process will help us identify the resources that will support the curriculum, as opposed to buying a textbook, which then becomes a curriculum.
We also talked about PARC, a really quick update on PARC. This is another acronym, I'm going to get this right. Performance-based assessments, PBAs. Those were the tests given in March, and now students are doing end-of-year assessments, which are shorter and don't have the open responses, the written responses. So we're hearing that the first round of tests in March went smoothly. It's possible. A lot of work went into this with technology and, you know, the different departments. And then overdrive, that's on our agenda tonight. Is that on the consent agenda, the overdrive? This has to do with the ability to check out, students checking out ebooks online, like you would do through the Elmhurst Public Library. That was it.
Any questions? No? Okay. Next is Performance Management Committee. Karen.
Thank you. So Performance Management Committee does not meet that frequently, so the last time we met was at the end of October. So we met on April 16th, and so I'm going to kind of, you know, bring you high level and then work down. So just to remember, what this committee looks at is three main areas. One is the superintendent goals and evaluation, the district performance indicators, and attracting, developing, and retaining our employees. So under those topics, the various updates are the job description, compensation study work. And Dave, but more so Jim Wool, updated the committee on what's happening. And so Jim is still working with the steering committee that represents all of the major groups of employees, and they are working to finalize the job descriptions for the district, throughout the district, and doing that in collaboration with the district employees. The HR department is looking at standardizing, systematizing, you know, this whole process and getting the information so that we can look at maybe future enhancements in the areas as we go through the HR cycle of attracting, hiring, developing, and retaining employees, and potentially incorporating them into more of a streamlined process, an effective process to easily post jobs, you know, get interview questions for various different groups of employees, if you will, or job positions, goal setting and, working through developing our employees and doing that more efficiently, effectively through standardized processes and systems. And still, the objective that we set out for is still on the docket to do a more comprehensive compensation study. So that's that topic. Then Dave really updated the committee and gave us an idea of where he is based on last summer when Dave went through the strategic plan and the organizational framework and the DPI. So let me give you an update briefly on that. So what Dave was doing is taking the information that we saw last summer in the retreat and keeping it current this year and actually looking at it from finishing out this year and transitioning to a new superintendent. So what he did was he highlighted, very similar to in the summer, where he's got the various different departments, HR, various things like the para collective bargaining, teacher evaluation, learning and teaching, the curriculum department, the assessment, or curriculum development, assessment, technology, professional development, student services, finance and operations would have the facilities, transportation, budget, and then the communications department, and we all know that the major initiative there is community engagement. So Dave is taking this document and updating it, and then it's going to be shared with the full board. So just so that you know where we are in that process. So it'll look like the organizational framework, the strategic planning, looking at it from a 2-year snapshot, and then really launching into in the summer, we should be reviewing the DPIs and doing that from various different perspectives, which the board has always, we wanted to do every summer to revisit them, but especially in light of para and the assessments and the decisions that will be made in the future based on input and feedback from all of the various groups that are involved in that process per state requirements. Okay. Next, well, I kind of touched base with the DPI, sorry, in that same topic. And then we also talked about the superintendent evaluation, and we have a quite lengthy evaluation, and the board had chartered this committee to streamline it. And we were in that process, but what we as a committee would like to recommend to the full board is that we look at it from these facets. One, the streamlined version, and incorporating the BPI superintendent profile elements that we're looking at, and getting some feedback from the new superintendent and best practices. So that's kind of the approach that we would like to take and then present it to the full board. Okay. And actually that closes out what we talked about in the Performance Management Committee. Any questions?
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the superintendent's consent agenda. Are there any items that anyone wants removed? Good.
I'd like to remove item E, JP Morgan Chase equipment lease.
Okay. Can we also remove, for discussion purposes, the school calendar, item J? Okay. Let's first deal with the rest of them. Can I get a motion for items A through D and F through I?
I move that we approve superintendent's consent agenda items A through D, F through I.
Second, anyone?
I second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion?
If I may just make just a couple of comments. First of all, I just want to point out to the board, and I think I said this, but I want to reiterate it. The approval of the EC8 school fees, which Chris just presented under my communication, does not include York. But we are continuing to move forward on the mobile learning initiative that we talked about at the last meeting. What we're waiting for is to flesh out the Chromebook purchase and the details of that to bring that back to the Board of Education at a later date. So that's not that's why it's not in front of you. But the initiative itself, we are still working with York administration and staff, along with Michelle and her department, to move that forward. So you will hear more of that at the next meeting. And then I just want Chris to highlight the approval of the insurance broker consultant, what that is and why we're recommending it as it is tonight.
3 years ago, we did an extensive RFP process for the insurance broker consultant. We received 18 proposals. Then we evaluated those and narrowed them to 5, and we did interviews, and the interview committee included Jim Collins from the board. We had 5 teachers. We had a few assistant superintendents. It was a very lengthy, thorough process, and in that process we selected corporate benefit consultants as our insurance broker consultant. In those 3 years, they have done a very good job. We are very happy with the services that they have provided, and so with that good service they've provided, we are not doing an RFP this time around. We are just recommending this contract, $47,000 per year. I provided a survey to the board of 19 other comparable districts to show that this is a very competitive price for this service.
I'd like to add too that a lot of times in my experience, when you have an insurance broker, it takes a while for them to sit and make changes and look long-term at what those insurance options would be, and working with the insurance committee. So it's another reason to keep with the company. We're happy with what they've been doing. They have engaged the insurance company and our staff members in discussions on future health insurance issues, and to disrupt it now, I think, would not be beneficial to the district or our employees. So that is why we're recommending tonight that we did not go out to bid, but we're recommending to stay with our present broker. Be glad to answer any questions.
Hearing none, then I'll ask Mrs. Walsh, call the roll.
Mrs. Ebner?
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen?
Yes.
Dr. Harrell?
Yes.
Mr. McDonough?
Yes.
Mrs. Bastido?
Yes.
Mr. Bloom is absent. Mr. Collins?
Yes. That's 6 ayes, no nays. That motion passes. So next would be item E. Can I have a motion for item E, please?
Excuse me. It's a long motion. I move that the Board of Education approve and authorize superintendent or the superintendent's designee to enter into a 4-year, $1 buyout, non-bank qualified lease purchase agreement with J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, N.A., pending legal review of lease terms for certain computer equipment for school district use, not to exceed $635,000 in purchase price, with a documentation fee of $1,999 and 4 annual premiums not to exceed $163,000 each in fiscal years 2016 through 2019, and to execute the lease schedule and other related documents to effectuate the lease.
That was quite the motion. Do I hear a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Moved by John, seconded by Karen. Any discussion?
I just pulled this. First of all, the substance of the matter is, I guess we're getting into both laptops and Chromebooks. Is the Chromebook purchase an element of the mobile learning initiative implementation, or is that the middle school piece, or?
I think we're turning this over to David. He's been.
Yes. I'm sorry if it didn't actually spell that out explicitly, but the Chromebooks in the lease are directed to the middle schools as part of the mobile learning implementation.
And this financing is our means of or this lease is our means of financing. And it laid out a 2-step bringing the signed lease for ratification. I'm just wondering if I can understand the way that works, why we're doing a two-step approval.
Not to sound, I honestly don't understand why we have to do it either. Our attorney would like the final documents. So we're going to end up executing these documents, running them through the process, and then getting final leaked documentation from the lease company, from Chase, JP Morgan Chase. Once we have all those final documents, the attorney would like that to come back and have the board see all that with all the detail and have you ratify those documents. I honestly don't know why that's important, but I think it's part of his comfort with writing the opinion letter that has to go along with the lease for the loan. So
That's actually sounds fairly standard. Essentially what we're doing, it sounds like, is we're going to approve this subject to the attorney's approvals of the documentation.
Okay. Not familiar with it, but, you know, it seems like if the attorney's recommending it, we can go along with that. Not sure that I really want to be responsible for the lease forms if that's what this is designed to do. Just saying.
This process was followed in the past, especially with the JP Morgan Chase leases that we've done. So I think it might have to also do something with the process that we follow based on the lender. So sometimes this has happened and sometimes it hasn't. It depends on the lender, but I know that with JP Morgan Chase, we have done this process before.
Dave, if there's any way to get a short explanation from Todd to okay.
I can get an explanation and share
Appreciate
that
it.
with you.
Okay. And no objections to this.
Thank you, John. Emily?
I just had a quick question, Dave. So the 85 staff laptops, so as the students move towards Chromebooks, are this teachers, staff are staying with the laptops?
The plan for next year is that teachers will retain the devices that they have and continue to use those and leverage that investment and using the Chrome browser to access the Google environment. There will be some developments going on in the technology department to introduce new technologies for the Chromebook, new apps that would allow access to some of the tools that the teachers need. For example, PowerSchool is recommended to run in a particular browser. I think it's the Firefox browser. And so in order for teachers to actually use a Chromebook for their job, we would have to have a remote desktop application that the teachers would be able to access that tool. So we're working towards allowing teachers to have Chromebooks, but we're just not quite there yet. I'm imagining probably within a year or so we'll be ready for that.
So right now the Chromebooks don't have everything the teachers need, so they're stay with the laptops.
That's correct. They just they can do everything they need to in the Google environment on a laptop, but as you know, with a Chromebook, it's a bit more optimized for Google. And as long as we have the app available for them to access the Windows environment that they need to do certain portions of their job, once that's available, I think we can move forward.
Anything else? All right. Well, let me turn it over to Mrs. Walsh.
Mr. McDonough?
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen?
Yes.
Mrs. Ebner?
Yes.
Mrs. Bastido?
Yes.
Mr. Bloom is absent. Dr. Harrell?
Yes.
And Mr. Collins?
Yes. That's 6 ayes, no nays, 1 absent. That motion passes. And then finally, can I get a motion for item J, the approval of the 2015-16 school calendar, at least a bare bones version thereof?
I recommend that the Board of Education approve the basic components of the 2015-2016 calendar as presented.
I second.
Moved by Emily, seconded by Margaret. Any discussion? Can I ask Mr. Pernod to walk us through?
Yes. Just to go back from last year, we had initiated last year as a pilot a split calendar for Elmhurst. The reason we started the split calendar was because we were trying to address 2 issues. One was to continue to have the high school have their first semester finals by the end of the semester before winter break comes around, so that students were not studying and worrying about exams coming back from winter break over the holidays. So in order to do that and to have enough days in the first semester to balance out between first semester and second semester, we have to start the high school as early as is being recommended tonight, which is the 14th of August. It is a Friday. It's what we did last year. Our intention is to continue with the freshman orientation on the Thursday, bringing students back on the Friday, get them back in class, and then hit the weekend, and then come back the following week. In order to break that up, because parents of middle school and elementary students were concerned with coming back that early in August, we then last year delayed the start of elementary and middle school to the following week, that Wednesday. The other need it addressed is avoiding a full week of school for elementary students. The year before, we had gone a full week, 5 full days at the start of school, and we had lots of parent concerns about having that as a really long week for the first week of school to go 5 days a week. So this accomplished moving the calendar for elementary and middle school back to a second week, a week later than the high school, and then also shortening that first week. As a result of that, we did a survey this January. We surveyed parents about the opinion of the split schedule for this year, and while it was not definitive, the majority of parents did like the split schedule. Weren't wild about it, but said they understood the rationale for it, and said they would like to continue with the split schedule. Now, I don't want to portray that was overwhelming support. It was a very close vote, and it really broke down between high school and middle school elementary. High school parents, as you know, really want those exams to be finished and put to bed before the holidays. Again, in order to do that, that dictates the high school calendar, and we have to start August 14th. For us to start Labor Day or around Labor Day, you would virtually have to, there would be no opportunity for the high school to finish with exams before the holidays. You would lose that aspect of the high school, and you would come back with 2 or 3 weeks in January, and then you would be doing finals at that point in time. So this accomplishes those main objectives, and that's the recommendation for tonight.
Emily?
I got some questions, and I think I forwarded it to you, and maybe you don't know the answer to this yet, but if the elementary and middle schools are starting on Wednesday the 19th, do you know if there's going to be an orientation still on Friday, August 14th, which would kind of require the elementary and middle school parents to still be here for that weekend and lose that time?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, Emily, so I want to talk with the principals about that. I'm empathetic with that. If we're asking, that's the final weekend for middle school and elementary parents, and I think we have for the most part, we do have Monday, Tuesday, the Institute days, which complicates how we come back to do that orientation.
Which might be why they put it on
a Friday. But maybe we need to revisit that, because, again, I am empathetic that, we take away another weekend for them. So,
and I think some schools, and if we're going by my memory, it's not always reliable, but something new this year was kind of doing that on the first day of school, which before it had always been an earlier day, and now it makes sense that maybe that's why they did it, to avoid having to do it that Friday before, that they knew this year was show up that morning. I don't know if Shannon, you remember this, where that's when you're doing all that orientation stuff. So maybe that was what the schools were kind of trying to figure out ways around that.
Yeah, I have a meeting Tuesday of next week. It's on my agenda for the principals to talk about, so.
I was just going to say that Friday, I understand, because I look at the calendar and the last day before the winter break is 18th, a full week before Christmas, so of course it means moving it up. I understand that totally, but that one hanging Friday, again, it seems like some of the same rationales that you have for looking at it in the elementary and middle school. I'm wondering if there's any way to look at that for the high school as well.
Again, every day you take off that, you're making the imbalance between first and second semester. So the other, when you talk to the high school staff and administration, most of the students are back in town that week. If they're involved in athletics at all, they are back that Wednesday. And we also have book sales, registration, all of that. So most of the families are back. So we want to take advantage. They're back in town anyway. We could get the kids in on Friday. It's a count day. We get the schedules in. We work out any kinks in the schedule and kids' classes, and then we can start fresh on Monday. Again, it's just a matter of counting the days and counting the numbers.
My comment was going to be around the high school and around the IHSA. I mean, not that, you know, not that that's a priority, but you do have to account for it because a lot of your students are coming back anyway. So you kind of highlighted the other piece that I think people, if you're not at high school and you haven't realized it, you know, it helps with the dates that you have set up the last 2 years based on the high school students needing to come back early at that time frame anyway.
And I have one question too, to say John's theme of the hanging Friday, the first day of school, right? Exactly. We had a letter writer submit a letter that pointed out, you know, with all this park testing in the spring, there's a modified block schedule that occurs. And did the calendar committee look at that and say, you know, with all that, is there a day that is lost in the second semester that we could move a day from first semester to second semester? I mean, I just want to make sure that was taken into consideration.
We did talk about that, but I think the problem is the uncertainty of where Park's going to go in the future, and to commit to that and make those kind of changes. And again, when you count the days, when it's actual student attendance days, you still have the problem of having less student attendance days in first semester than you do second semester. So, you know, it's a matter of, can you shift those days into the future, and I'm not sure what we can do.
All right, thank you. And I also want to reiterate my support for now having seen, having my own daughter, senior, seen 4 years of having finals before Christmas break, winter break. I really think that it benefits our high school students so much that we really need to keep it as is. Emily?
Is the trimester idea something that other schools do that would even be a possibility?
You know, I don't know. I would have to look into that. I would have to look at their school code, student attendance, and how it's counted. I mean, it's something we can look at. I can't answer that tonight.
But I know that would also, you know, the finals would still be okay, but isn't another idea that you have a lot more instructional days before the AP tests when you start earlier in the year, so that wouldn't solve that problem?
Yeah, if AP stays the beginning of May, then you still have that issue, and now you're really shortening those third semester classes. And then on top of Park, I think that third semester would be pretty difficult to get quality instructional time in.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? This does not require a roll call vote. So all in favor of the motion on the floor, item J, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. The next on the agenda is the superintendent's agenda. Items A through D, we need to take them one at a time. So item A.
I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution of appointment to DuPage Area Occupational Education System Board of Directors, which appoints Dr. Michelle Fitzgerald, Assistant Superintendent of Learning and Teaching, to serve as its representative to the DuPage Area Occupational Education System Board of Directors for the 2015-2016 school year.
Second the motion.
Okay. Moved by John, seconded by Karen. Any discussion? Emily?
Am I missing? I just didn't see the resolution. Is there a resolution? I don't know if it was on.
It's pretty straightforward. It's just appointing her, so.
There's an attachment.
No.
It's just, that's it, okay.
That
Sorry,
motion
am I being-
kind of does it.
That's it? Okay, got it. I'm happy.
Are we good with that? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Next is an approval, and we separate these out of the consent agenda, all the donations, so we can say a proper thank you to the people and the organizations that have made these donations to our individual schools and the school district. So item B, anybody want to take that?
I'll take it. This is a donation for Edison School. It's for a new laminator. The current laminator is having problems, and in the rationale it talks about one of the most used tools in the building. So thank you to the anonymous donation for Edison School. The recommendation is that the Board of Education accept the donation of $1,817.65 for a laminator at Edison School. This donation is accepted in accordance with policy 880, gifts to the district.
Second? All right, moved by Shannon, seconded by John. Any discussion? Except for a thank you to our person that's donated that laminator. Mrs. Walsh?
Mrs. Ebner?
Yes.
Mr. McDonough?
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen?
Yes.
Mr. Bloom is absent. Dr. Harrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Vestito?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes, that's 6 ayes, 1 absent, no nays. That motion passes. If we can take item C, please.
This donation is from Jefferson School PTA for a new sound system for the gymnasium, as well as some water bottle refilling stations. So I move that the Board of Education accept the donations from Jefferson School PTA in the amount of $3,535 for a new sound system and $2,685 for water bottle refilling stations. These donations are accepted in accordance with policy 8:80, gifts to the district.
A second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yes, we'd like to very much thank the Jefferson School PTA for organizing this and for the Jefferson School parents for contributing to our students in our schools.
Thank you. Mrs. Walsh?
Mrs. Stufen?
Yes.
Dr. Harrell?
Yes.
Mr. McDonough?
Yes.
Mr. Bloom is absent. Mrs. Ebner?
Yes.
Mrs. Vestito?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes, that's 6 ayes, 1 absent, no nays. That motion passes. Item D, please.
This is a donation for Bryan Middle School. A father of a 7th grade middle school student there has offered to donate $2,000 to the Bryan Band to show his appreciation to Miss Sebbing, Mr. Berg, and his son's experiences. So this is from the company World's Largest Laundromat. The recommendation is that the Board of Education approve the $2,000 donation to Bryan Band from the World's Largest Laundromat. This donation is accepted in accordance with policy 880, gifts to the district.
I second the motion.
Okay, moved by Shannon, seconded by Karen. Any discussion or further thank you?
Just thank you very much.
Mrs. Walsh?
Mrs. Ebner?
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen?
Yes.
Dr. Harrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Vestito?
Yes.
Mr. McDonough?
Yes.
Mr. Bloom is absent. Mr. Collins?
Yes, that's 6 ayes, 1 absent, no nays. That motion passes. Next on our agenda is board communications. Anything?
I have 3 good news items I'd just like to share with the board, if I may. I'd like to announce that the Elmhurst District 205 PTA Council was recently recognized with the Illinois Legislative Action Award, which is bestowed upon PTA local units, councils, districts, and regions that demonstrate exemplary advocacy action on behalf of children with their legislators. The award was accepted on behalf of the Elmhurst PTA and legislation by the legislative chairperson of PTA, Carol Snyder, at the DuPage East Regional PTA Director at their PTA State Convention that was held in East Peoria on April 18th. And if you remember right, our PTA here in Elmhurst was responsible for a legislative forum that was really well attended, well received, the cost of free public education under the new reality, and Carol was one of the leading moderators of that. So congratulations to the PTA for taking that role. Secondly, Chris Bloom's department was recognized by 2 awards just recently. We received the Association of School Business Officials International Certificate of Excellence.
You meant to say Chris Weldon.
Oh, what did I say, Chris Bloom? No, Chris Weldon. So it's a Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting, which exceeds the program's high standards for financial reporting and accountability. And this is the award for the 6th year in a row. So congratulations to Chris Weldon. And I want to also mention our auditor and systems analyst, Helen Perez, for preparation of that award. And then the second one is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, CAFR, for the fiscal year ending 2014. Again, it goes beyond, it recognizes going beyond the minimum requirements of accepted accounting principles and adding information of trends and demographic information that gives boards and the community a good understanding of the highlights of key financial developments for the current year. So congratulations again to Chris and the staff. And finally, just to recognize your community high school PE instructor, Michelle Skurlock, and the performing arts dance teacher, Anna Saposnikoff, who were quoted in the Just Dance article of March 2015 edition of Student Health, Student Health 101 magazine. It's for their co-ed dance fitness class that is offered as part of the York curriculum. It's a terrific class. Students really get moving. I was at Institute Day there and got involved in this dance class, so it was a pretty good class. It's very.
And can we see that, please?
So it really works on flexibility, strength, and other aspects of physical fitness in kind of a fun way. So they were recognized as really an outstanding program. So congratulations to those 2 teachers.
That's awesome. And if there is a video, we would definitely have fun with that.
Not a video.
I have one quick item. I received a letter from Barbara Rosenberg that I just want to read for the board and for everyone here. She is commending the efforts of our athletic director at York, Rob Wagner. So it says, I'm writing to commend the efforts of Rob Wagner, the athletic director at York High School. With Rob's help, Sam Williams' photo hangs on the Wall of Honor in the athletic wing at York. Sam is now the 6th student to be recognized for his outstanding achievement. Rob diligently persevered to bring this project to fruition. I am profoundly grateful to Rob, and Rob deserves to be congratulated. Sam Williams is an extraordinary man. Sam graduated from York High School with an exemplary record in 2003. He went on to graduate from the University of Illinois with honors and to complete a master's degree at UIC. Sam completed the Paralympic Games in Athens in 2004. Sam Williams has the will to fight and the spirit to win. He has heart and determination. Sam has always set goals and worked his hardest to achieve those goals. He has looked to all of the naysayers in the eye as if to say, oh yeah, just watch me. He faces each day ready to tackle the day despite the fact that he is profoundly disabled. He has severe cerebral palsy. Sam has been wheelchair bound since 3rd grade. He is nonverbal and uses a communication device with eye recognition. In spite of his CP, he has achieved what many would view as impossible. District 205's vision statement to educate children of all backgrounds and all ability levels, promoting high individual student achievement, is truly demonstrated by including Sam on the Wall of Honor and recognizing his achievement and tenacity. Sam Williams will contribute to set goals and to strive to achieve them. He will continue to be a model for excellence. Sincerely, Barbara Rosenberg. So first of all, Barbara, thank you for pointing this out. Second of all, thank you to Rob Wagner for making this happen. And thank you to Sam Williams, who will serve to be an inspiration to our students for a generation to come. Thanks. Anything else under board communications? Hearing nothing, then we'll quickly review some upcoming meetings, and we have a bunch of them. Monday, May 4th, Finance and Operations Committee meeting at 5 o'clock in this room. Monday, May 4th, Special Board of Education meeting at 6 o'clock. And that is more superintendent, that's a closed session, more superintendent interviews. Wednesday, May 6th, Learning and Teaching Committee at 7 p.m. here. Tuesday, May 12th, our next regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting at 7:30 p.m. Tuesday, May 19th, Finance and Operations Committee at 6:30 p.m. And Tuesday, May 26th is our final May regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting. Next on our agenda, we've moved our closed session to after the meeting because of our superintendent interviews before our meeting. So in our closed session, we'll be discussing student discipline, actual and potential litigation, and the approval of the March 24th, April 8th, and April 14th closed session minutes. So can I have a motion to enter closed session, please? Emily?
I move that we enter into closed session for the purposes of discussing student discipline, actual potential litigation, and approving minutes.
I second that motion.
Moved by Emily, seconded by John. Mrs. Walsh?
Mrs. Bastido?
Yes.
Mr. McDonough?
Yes.
Mrs. Ebner?
Yes.
Dr. Harrell? Yes. Mrs. Stufen?
Yes.
Mr. Bloom is absent. Mr. Collins?
Yes. That's 6 ayes, 1 absent, no nays. That motion passes. We go to closed session, and the meeting will adjourn after one action item on student discipline, which will be discussed immediately following closed session.
Just for clarification, we will come back in this room for one item on student discipline, that we will go back into open session, and then we'll adjourn the whole board meeting. So,
Thank you.